The Galactic Council chamber was never silent. It was built to echo with voices from 1,000 species. Light from distant stars poured through massive crystal windows. Energy fields hummed softly beneath the floor. This place existed to remind the galaxy who ruled it. But now, there was silence. At the center of the chamber, one seat stood empty. Earth's seat. The empty space felt wrong. Too noticeable. Too heavy. Many council members avoided looking at it. Others stared openly, their eyes filled with something close to relief. The High Arbiter finally spoke. Proceed with the hearing. A large hologram flared to life. Images of a destroyed world filled the air. Cities reduced to glass. Oceans boiled away. A core world of the council, gone in a single night. Gasps spread through the chamber. This attack, the Arbiter continued, was carried out using human technology. No evidence was shown. No data logs. No captured ships. Just the accusation. A few council members hesitated. One of them, old and scaled, raised a clawed hand. Has Earth responded to our summons? The Arbiter did not answer right away. Earth's ambassadors were detained for questioning, he said carefully. They did not survive. The chamber stirred. Some were shocked. Some in approval. Humanity has always been inconvenient. Too emotional. Too stubborn. Too willing to question orders. But useful. Humans fought in wars that were not theirs. They crewed dangerous stations. They died in places other species refused to go. They were praised as brave, never as equal. Now they were accused of betrayal. Let the record show, the Arbiter said, that humanity has refused all communication since the attack. That was not true. Multiple signals from Earth had arrived. Requests to speak. Requests to show evidence. Requests to explain. Every one of them was blocked. The vote came quickly. Earth was declared a threat to galactic stability. Human space would be contained. Human fleets would be seized. Human colonies would be secured. A clean decision. Efficient. Final. As the gavel struck, the lights in the chamber dimmed slightly. No one noticed at first. Far from the council chamber, beyond mapped space, deep inside regions marked as empty and useless, ancient human beacons powered down. One by one, human colonies received a single message. No speech. No emotion. Just 4 words. Return all fleets. Now, on Earth, cities went dark as orbital defenses shifted position. Shipyards that had not launched a vessel in decades suddenly came alive. Hulls the size of mountains slid out of hidden docks carved into asteroids, moons, and hollowed planets. These ships were not beautiful. They were not designed to impress. They were built to survive. In the council chamber, celebrations quietly began. Trade guilds discussed new routes through former human space. Military leaders spoke of peacekeeping operations. No one noticed the absence of human traffic on the galactic network, until a single scout ship failed to report in. Then another. Then 12 more. A junior analyst raised an alarm. Sensor ghosts appeared at the edge of a border system. Massive distortions in space-time that made no sense. Probably faulty equipment, a commander said. Then the border system went silent. No distress call. No debris. No explosion. Just gone. A cold ripple passed through the chamber as delayed reports arrived. An entire defense fleet had vanished in less than 30 seconds. Weapons never fired. Shields never activated. It was as if the ships had never existed. Panic tried to rise, but the council crushed it quickly. Human tricks, one member scoffed. They are bluffing. As if summoned by those words, a signal forced its way through every channel in the chamber. It ignored security protocols. It overrode council authority. A human signal. The image was simple. A dark background. Stars are barely visible. A human figure appeared, not wearing armor, not shouting, not angry. Calm. His is Admiral Elias Rourke of Earth, the human said. No one spoke. For 73 years, humanity served the council, Rourke continued. We fought your wars. We guarded your borders. We bled for your peace. The image shifted. Names appeared. Human names. Millions of them. All of these died under council command. The Arbiter stood. This transmission is unauthorized. Rourke did not stop. We asked for proof. You gave us chains. We asked for justice. You gave us silence. The human leaned closer to the camera. So now, we give you the same. The signal cut. At the same moment, every long-range sensor in council space detected something impossible. Hundreds. No, thousands of contacts. They were not arriving through known warp lanes. They were not emerging from hyperspace. They were already there, surrounding key systems, orbiting council shipyards, waiting. A single final message appeared on the main display. Short. Humans. Phase 1 complete. The lights in the chamber flickered again. This time, they did not come back. And far away, at the edge of the galaxy, Earth's fleet began to move. The galaxy had always believed it understood humanity. Humans were young, loud, emotional. Their history was short compared to ancient empires that measured time in millions of years. They argued among themselves. They questioned authority. They felt too much. That was why the Council had never feared them. And that was why the silence terrified them now. Across Council space, human systems went dark, not from destruction, but from choice. Navigation beacons shut down. Trade relays stopped transmitting. Even civilian broadcasts vanished. It was as if an entire species had stepped backward out of reality. At first, the Council tried to explain it away. They are hiding, one military delegate said. They are panicking, another claimed. Let them, a third laughed. They will crawl back. But days passed, then weeks, and humanity did not return. Supply chains that depended on human labor began to fail. Border stations once staffed by human crews stood empty. Pirate activity spiked where human patrols had once quietly kept order. The galaxy began to feel unbalanced. On the Council's secure military networks, old records were quietly accessed. Files sealed for centuries resurfaced. They were not pulled by fear-driven analysts or desperate politicians. They were opened by veterans, those who had fought beside humans long ago. One such veteran was Commander Vethrix of the Car Dominion. His species had ruled star systems before Earth had discovered fire. He had commanded fleets when humans were still arguing over their first warp drives. And yet, it was humans he remembered most clearly. They were the ones who volunteered for impossible missions. The ones who stayed behind so others could escape. The ones who smiled before boarding ships that were never meant to return. Vethrix stared at an old combat log, his claws trembling. A forgotten campaign. A lost sector. Human unit designation, Atlas Group. Mission outcome, successful. Human survival rate, 0%. He remembered that day. The humans had asked only one question before deploying. Will this save the others? It had. Vethrix closed the file slowly. They are not hiding, he whispered to the empty command room. They are preparing. Elsewhere, in the core systems, panic began to surface. Scouts sent into former human territory reported something disturbing. There were no wrecks, no signs of evacuation, no chaos. Everything was orderly. Planets powered down non-essential systems. Orbital paths were cleared. Defensive arrays were repositioned, not activated. Human worlds looked like they were holding their breath. The Council ordered reconnaissance fleets to advance deeper. They never returned. No explosions. No debris fields. Just sudden, total loss of signal. Military analysts could not explain it. Human weapons were advanced, but not this advanced. Not capable of erasing fleets without a trace. Unless the Council had never seen humanity's real technology. The thought spread quietly, like a sickness. For generations, humans had shared only what was necessary. Their ships were fast, but not the fastest. Their weapons are strong, but not overwhelming. Their defenses are reliable, but not exceptional. They had always fit in. Too perfect. Deep beneath Earth's surface, under layers of rock and forgotten oceans, ancient vaults opened. They were not secret from humanity. They were secret for humanity. Inside were records older than the Council itself. Records of first contact, before the Council existed in its current form. Before its laws were written. Back then, humanity had encountered something else in the dark between stars. Something that did not negotiate. Something that did not warn. Something that nearly ended them. Humanity survived. But survival had changed them. They learned that strength advertised was strength targeted. That power revealed was power challenged. That the galaxy punished those who appeared too capable. So humanity adapted. They hid their greatest minds in civilian research. They disguised military breakthroughs as industrial tools. They spread their fleets across hundreds of hidden locations. And most of all, they planned. Not for domination. For betrayal. On a human command ship drifting in a region unmarked by any star chart, Admiral Rourke stood before a massive holographic display. It showed the galaxy as it truly was. not as the Council mapped it. Lines of influence, paths of control, points of exploitation. Council fleets are confused, an officer reported. They're spreading out, trying to find us. Rourke nodded. Let them, he said. Human ships moved without warp signatures, without energy flares. They used methods the Council believed impossible or impractical. To humans, they were simply safer. Entire armadas slipped into positions around key Council systems, not attacking, not signaling. Waiting. The galaxy began to whisper. Neutral species started to disconnect from Council networks. Old treaties were quietly suspended. Some worlds openly refused Council orders for the first time in history. Fear was contagious. And fear, humanity understood well. A small Council task force finally made contact. They jumped into a former human mining system, weapons charged, shields raised. Nothing happened. No ambush. No resistance. Then their sensors began to fail. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just wrong readings. Distances shifted. Timestamps disagreed. Star positions drifted. The commander ordered a retreat. The jump drive never activated. Space folded inward. When Council reinforcements arrived days later, they found nothing but a calm star system, and a single object drifting where the fleet should have been. A human probe. It transmitted a simple message on repeat. Observation complete. Please remain where you are. The Council finally realized the truth. Humanity was not reacting. Humanity was executing a plan. Emergency sessions were called. Accusations flew. Blame shifted from species to species. Some demanded immediate, total war. Others begged for negotiation. But there was no one left to negotiate with. Humanity had gone silent again. On Earth, children were evacuated to deep shelters, not in panic, but in routine. Citizens followed procedures practiced for generations, never fully explained, always maintained. This was not humanity's first existential threat. This was simply the first time the galaxy was on the other side of it. Admiral Rourke watched as the final fleet elements took position. Phase 2 readiness? He asked. Confirmed, came the reply. All assets in place. Council response patterns mapped. Rourke looked at the display, then away. They chose this, he said quietly. We gave them every chance. In the Council chamber, the High Arbiter stood before a room that no longer felt powerful. Every screen showed uncertainty. Every report carried fear between its lines. What do humans want? Someone finally asked. The Arbiter had no answer. At that moment, across every major world in Council space, a new signal appeared. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was a countdown. And for the first time in its long history, the galaxy understood something far too late. Humanity has never been forgotten. They had been watching, waiting, and now they were done waiting. The countdown did not tick loudly. There was no sound, no dramatic alarm. It simply existed. A line of human symbols appeared on screens across Council space, clean and unmistakable. The numbers descended at a steady pace, indifferent to panic, politics, or power. 72 hours. At first, the Council refused to acknowledge it. This is psychological warfare, one delegate declared. A bluff, another insisted. They want us to be afraid. But fear does not need permission. Markets crashed within hours. Civilian traffic clogged hyperspace lanes as entire populations tried to flee core systems. Worlds that had trusted the Council for millennia suddenly realized how fragile that trust was. And still, humanity said nothing. No speeches, no demands, no explanation, only the countdown. Military fleets were mobilized in chaos. Commanders argued over strategy because there was no enemy formation to face. Human ships did not appear on sensors in a way that made sense. They flickered at the edges of detection, then vanished. It was like trying to fight a shadow that refused to cast light. 70 hours. On the third day, a Council fleet finally encountered resistance. The Third Suppression Armada, one of the largest in Council history, entered the Eshara Corridor, a region of space critical to galactic travel. If humanity intended to strike, this was the logical choke point. The Armada took positions. Shields flared. Weapons locked. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. Then a single human ship appeared. It was small, barely a fraction of the Armada's size. Its hull was dark, unmarked, and utterly unremarkable. Council commanders laughed. This is it, one scoffed. They send a messenger? The human ship did not transmit. It did not power weapons. It simply moved forward. Space around it began to distort, not violently, not dramatically. Sensors reported impossible readings. Distance became uncertain. The ship seemed closer and farther at the same time. The Armada fired. Thousands of energy beams and kinetic rounds converged on the target. They never reached it. Every attack curved away, as if space itself refused to cooperate. Then the human ship stopped, and the Armada began to disappear. Not explode, not burn, disappear. Ships vanished one by one, swallowed by collapsing pockets of folded space. Crews had no time to scream, no time to understand. One moment they existed, then they didn't. The human ship remained. It turned slowly and transmitted a single message. This corridor is closed. Then it vanished too. When the Council Command received the report, disbelief turned into terror. That Armada was not defeated. It was erased. 60 hours. Across the galaxy, ancient species that had ruled since before Earth's oceans cooled began to remember something they had tried to forget. The last time a power disappeared this quickly, it had been because it challenged something it did not understand. Back then, it had not been humans. But the pattern felt the same. On Earth, there was no celebration. Cities remained dim. Communications were brief and professional. Humanity was not cheering. They were mourning. Admiral Rourke stood alone in a quiet observation chamber. On a small display floated an image of Earth, scarred but alive. He knew the cost already paid. He knew the cost was still coming. Civilian casualties? He asked softly. Minimal, an aide replied. Council infrastructure collapse is causing unrest, but no targeted strikes on populations. Rourke closed his eyes. Good, he said. Keep it that way. This was not vengeance. This was a correction. 54 hours. The Council attempted diplomacy at last. A coalition of neutral species bypassed Council channels and sent an open transmission toward human-controlled space. They spoke carefully, respectfully. They asked one question. What do you want? For the first time since the countdown began, humanity answered. The message did not come from Earth. It came from everywhere. Human ships, probes, satellites, and hidden relays synchronized a response. The same words appeared on billions of screens. Truth. Nothing more. The galaxy froze. Truth was dangerous. Truth was unstable. And the Council had built its power on carefully managed lies. 50 hours. A fracture formed inside the Council itself. Several species withdrew entirely. Fleets defected. Others shut down their borders and declared neutrality, refusing all Council orders. The High Arbiter demanded unity, but his voice carried no weight anymore. Too many remembered how easily humanity had been sacrificed. Too many wondered if they were next. 48 hours. Humanity made its next move. Council archives, thought to be impenetrable, were unlocked. Not hacked. Opened. Records spilled into the galactic network. Secret votes, classified extermination orders, manipulated conflicts engineered to weaken rivals. Evidence of entire species quietly erased to maintain balance. And woven through it all, human fingerprints. Human battalions deployed to die. Human fleets sent to delay enemies with no chance of survival. Human colonies abandoned because they were expendable. The galaxy watched its own history collapse. Riots erupted on Council worlds. Governments fell in hours. Citizens realized their enemies had never been foreign species. They had been the Council itself. 40 hours. The High Arbiter ordered the activation of last resort defenses, ancient weapons hidden since the Council's founding. Devices meant to shatter stars and rewrite space itself. They did not activate. Humanity had already disabled them. Decades ago. Quietly. Without anyone noticing. That was when true panic set in. For the first time, the Council understood the full weight of its mistake. Humanity had not merely planned for betrayal. They had planned for victory. 36 hours. A new human transmission appeared. This one showed Admiral Rourke again. He looked tired. This countdown is not a threat, he said. It is a courtesy. No one interrupted him this time. You used us because you thought we were weak. You silenced us because you thought no one would care. Images shifted behind him. Alien civilians helping wounded humans, human medics saving non-human children, soldiers of different species standing together. You were wrong about one thing, Rourke continued. The galaxy does care. It always did. He leaned forward slightly. You just taught it who the real enemy was. The transmission ended. 30 hours. Council control collapsed completely. Worlds declared independence. Fleets abandoned positions. Some species openly welcomed human ships as protectors. Others begged for forgiveness. Humanity accepted none of it. They were not here to rule. They were here to end something. 24 hours. At the center of Council space, the Grand Assembly world powered its shields to maximum. Every remaining fleet gathered there, forming the largest defensive formation in galactic history. They waited. Human ships began to appear, not suddenly, not dramatically, calmly. They emerged from folded space, from shadows between stars, from angles no one had mapped. Thousands of them. They did not attack. They were surrounded. The galaxy held its breath. 12 hours. A final message was broadcast. Not from Rourke. From Earth itself. It was simple. Humans. Unmistakable. Judgment begins at 0. The countdown continued. And for the first time since the stars had learned to fear, the galaxy realized something chillingly clear. Humanity was not coming to destroy the Council. They were coming to end the idea that anyone should ever replace it. 0 did not arrive with fire. That was the first thing the galaxy noticed. When the countdown reached its end, there was no explosion, no blinding wave of energy, no screaming alarms echoing across space. The Grand Assembly world still existed. Its star still burned. Its shield still shimmered. For a single, fragile moment, hope returned. Some believed humanity had hesitated. They were wrong. At 0, something far more unsettling happened. Every Council military network went dark at the exact same instant. Not jammed, not damaged, disconnected. Command ships lost contact with their fleets. Automated defenses shut themselves down. Targeting systems returned empty results, as if there were no enemies anywhere in the galaxy. Panic erupted. Orders were shouted, repeated, contradicted. Backup systems failed to engage. Ancient analog controls, rarely used, flickered back to life, only to display warnings no one had seen before. Override active. Human authority detected. Inside the Grand Assembly chamber, leaders from dozens of species stared at the message in disbelief. That's impossible, someone whispered. No one has that level of access. They did not realize the truth yet. Humanity had never needed to break the Council's systems. They had helped build them. Across Council space, human ships moved. Not as a wave. Not as an invasion. As a surgeon's hand. Shipyards vanished first. Massive industrial rings that had taken centuries to build were disabled in minutes. Power cores were shut down with perfect precision. Automated construction lines froze mid-motion. No explosions. No civilian casualties. Just silence. Military academies followed. Then command relays. Then long-range communication hubs. The galaxy watched its greatest war machine lose the ability to fight, piece by piece. On dozens of worlds, civilians gathered in the streets, staring at the sky. They expected bombardment. They expected annihilation. It did not come. Human ships passed overhead and did nothing. That was when fear truly set in. Destruction was understandable. Restraint was not. A senior Council tactician, his voice shaking, addressed the remaining leadership. They are dismantling us, he said. Not attacking. Dismantling. Another snapped back. Why? Why not finish it? No one answered. The truth was spoken hours later by a junior analyst, barely noticed among the chaos. Because they don't need to, she said quietly. Her words echoed louder than any alarm. On a neutral world near the Council core, an emergency broadcast interrupted all channels. Admiral Rourke appeared again. Behind him were images of disabled shipyards, silent fleets, and darkened command worlds. We are not here to punish your people, he said. They were never our enemy. The High Arbiter tried to speak. The transmission muted him automatically. Rourke continued, his voice steady but heavy. For generations, you told your citizens that peace required control. That order required sacrifice. That someone else always had to bleed. The image shifted. Human soldiers on distant worlds. Human miners trapped in collapsing tunnels. Human colonies erased from maps. You chose us, Rourke said. Because we were young. Because we were adaptable. Because we cared. His eyes hardened. You mistook that for weakness. Across the galaxy, alien civilians watched in stunned silence. Many had never seen these images. Many had never known the cost of their comfort. Rourke raised a hand slightly. This ends now. The transmission cut, But the message remained. Council authority was gone. Not destroyed. Removed. In the days that followed, something unprecedented happened. Council fleets that still functioned began to surrender, not to humans, but to their own worlds. Commanders turned their ships over to civilian governments. Entire military hierarchies collapsed without a single shot fired. The Council had ruled through inevitability. Humanity had broken that illusion. Still, not everyone accepted it. On the fortress world of Calth Prime, a hardline Council faction made its stand. Their species had been architects of Council law since its founding. Pride ran deep. Fear ran deeper. They activated planetary shields and powered ancient orbital cannons. This world will not bow, their leader declared. If humanity wants us, they will have to burn us from the stars. Human ships arrived within the hour. They formed a loose perimeter and waited. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Inside the fortress, confusion spread. Power levels fluctuated. Systems behaved erratically. Then a message appeared on every internal display. Civilian evacuation window, 6 hours. At first, the leaders laughed. Then transport corridors opened, routes through space that ignored Health Prime's defenses completely. Human ships guided evacuation vessels through safely. No inspections. No demands. Only one rule. Military personnel were not permitted to leave. 6 hours later, the last civilian transport departed. The leaders of Calth Prime stood alone in their fortress, surrounded by weapons that no longer responded. Human ships closed in. They did not fire. They deployed containment fields, massive, invisible structures that wrapped around the planet's military infrastructure only. Bases shut down. Cannons powered off. Armories sealed themselves. The fortress world remained intact. Its ability to wage war was gone forever. A single final transmission arrived. "You chose defiance," Admiral Rourke said. "We chose mercy." Health Prime fell, not in flame, but in humiliation. News of it spread like wildfire. Resistance collapsed everywhere. That was when the galaxy began to understand the true horror of humanity's response. They were not conquering. They were teaching. On Earth, the cost became visible at last. Hospitals filled quietly. Memorial walls extended deeper underground. Names were added every hour. Crews lost during silent operations. Engineers who never returned. Ships that vanished beyond recovery. Humanity was paying for this victory in blood. They always had. Rourke stood before a wall of names, alone. An aide approached cautiously. "Some council remnants are requesting talks. They want terms." Rourke did not turn around. "There are no terms," he said. "There is an ending." "What about leadership?" the aide asked. "Someone has to replace them." Rourke finally faced her. "No," he said. "That's the lesson." As the last council-controlled world fell under containment, a galaxy-spanning broadcast went out. This time not from Earth alone, but from thousands of worlds. It carried no symbols of power, no flags, no threats, just a statement. The Galactic Council no longer exists. In its place, a temporary accord was announced, administered jointly by neutral worlds, independent species, and human observers. Humanity did not take seats of authority. They refused them. That refusal shook the galaxy more than any battle. Because power taken could be challenged. Power declined had to be understood. As the stars settled into a new, uncertain quiet, one truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity had ended an empire without becoming one. And somewhere deep in the fractured remnants of Council space, a desperate few began to whisper about a final option, an old weapon, forbidden even by the Council itself. A weapon meant not to control the galaxy, but to erase a species from history. And this time, mercy might no longer be possible. The weapon was older than the Council. That alone should have been warning enough. It existed only as fragments of forbidden text scattered across sealed archives, references buried under layers of denial and fear. Even speaking its designation aloud had once been grounds for execution. Not because it was powerful, because it was final. The remnants of the Council gathered in secret, scattered across hidden worlds and mobile sanctuaries. They no longer spoke with authority. They whispered like conspirators, like criminals hiding from the law they once controlled. They told themselves they had no choice. Humanity had dismantled everything else. Their fleets were contained. Their command structures were gone. Their influence had evaporated. What remained was pride and terror. The humans will not stop, one former counselor insisted. They will decide the future without us. They already have, another replied. And we are still alive. That is the problem, came the answer. They convinced themselves that mercy was a trick, that restraint was temporary, that humanity would eventually turn its power outward, that today's silence would become tomorrow's domination. Fear is very good at justifying monsters. The weapon required a star. Not just any star. A living one, an active stellar core tied gravitationally and quantum-linked to its planetary system. When activated, it did not explode. It was rewritten. It erased probability, causality, and history within a defined radius. Not destruction, removal. A system struck by it would not be remembered by the universe itself. No ruins. No debris. No ghosts. Just absence. The Council had once sworn never to use it. They had built their entire moral authority on that promise. Now they broke it. The target was chosen carefully. Not Earth. Too obvious. Instead, they selected a human colony system, one of the first beyond Sol. Heavily populated. Symbolic, but distant enough to feel justified. If humanity responded with rage, the Council would claim it proved their fears all along. The activation sequence began in silence. No countdown. No broadcast. Only a deep tremor in space that human sensors felt instantly. On a human monitoring station far from the front lines, alarms flared without sound. Readings spiked into ranges no one liked to see. An officer froze. "This can't be right," she whispered. She reran the data. It didn't change. She sent the alert straight to Earth. Admiral Rourke received it while standing in a quiet memorial hall. Names were still being etched into the walls behind him, slow and endless. He read the report once, then again. Then he closed his eyes. "Confirm," he said. "Confirmed," came the reply. "It matches pre-council theoretical models. They found it." Rourke exhaled slowly. "How long?" "Minutes," the officer said. "If they complete the sequence." He didn't let her finish. "All fleets," Rourke ordered, his voice low and steady. "Emergency override. Full priority." Human ships reacted instantly. But distance was distance, even for them. The weapon activated before they could arrive. In the colony system, life ended without warning. No explosion. No pain. One moment, billions of humans lived their lives, working, loving, dreaming. The next moment, the system was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Space folded inward on itself, then smoothed out as if nothing had ever been there. When human probes arrived seconds later, they found nothing. No star. No planets. No trace that the system had ever existed. Even light behaved differently there, bending around an emptiness that should not have been possible. Humanity felt it, not as grief alone, as something deeper. A tear. Across Earth, people stopped what they were doing without knowing why. Some collapsed. Others cried without understanding the reason. Entire cities fell into silence. The memorial walls stopped updating. There were no names to add. There were no records to retrieve. Those people had never existed. Human command convened immediately. There was no shouting. No panic. Just faces that had lost something permanent. A junior officer spoke first, her voice shaking. "Casualty estimate, unknown. The system has been removed from all historical databases. It's like it never happened." An older strategist finished the thought quietly. "Except we remember." That was the line. The one humanity had hoped never to cross. Rourke stood at the center of the chamber. His expression was not angry. It was hollow. "We warned them," someone said. "We showed restraint." "Yes," Rourke replied. "And they learned the wrong lesson." Silence followed. Then Rourke spoke again, each word deliberate. "Change our posture." Every officer looked up. "Effective immediately," he continued. "All mercy constraints are suspended." No one objected. Not one. "This is no longer a correction," Rourke said. "It is a response." Human fleets move differently now. They are no longer disabled first. They no longer isolated systems carefully. They struck. The first target was not a council world. It was the facility that had fired the weapon. Hidden inside a rogue star cluster, shielded by exotic matter and ancient defenses, it had been considered untouchable. Human ships arrived without warning. They did not breach. They collapsed the star. Not with violence, but precision, forcing its core into a controlled implosion that consumed the facility, the surrounding fleet, and the system itself. The difference was critical. The star still existed. The system would recover over time. Humanity had destroyed the weapon, but not erased the place. The message was clear. We will not become you, but we will stop you. Across the galaxy, fear shifted again. Not fear of humanity's power, fear of their resolve. Neutral worlds that had hesitated now acted decisively. They opened their archives, surrendered forbidden technologies, and exposed anyone who had supported the weapon's activation. Council remnants fractured completely. Some tried to flee beyond known space. Humanity let them go. Others attempted to bargain, offering knowledge, territory, anything. Humanity ignored them. The war had changed shape. It was no longer about the Council. It was about ensuring that weapon could never exist again. Every archive was searched. Every rumor is investigated. Every shadow examined. Human intelligence networks expanded quietly, relentlessly. And beneath it all, grief settled into something harder. Purpose. On Earth, a new memorial was built. Not for names. For absence. A vast chamber, empty except for a single inscription etched into dark stone. They were here. We remember. Rourke stood before it alone. An aide approached slowly. Sir, some of the fleet commanders are asking. They want to know if there's a limit now. Rourke did not turn. Yes, he said. There is. He faced her. We will never erase a people, he said. Not even them. And if they try again? Rourke's voice dropped. They won't. As human fleets advanced toward the last Council strongholds, something else moved in the galaxy. Something old, something watching. The use of the forbidden weapon had not gone unnoticed. For the first time in thousands of years, forces beyond the Council and humanity began to stir. And they were very interested in a species that could choose restraint. After losing an entire world, the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons. It was the line it refused to cross. And what happened when someone else crossed them instead? The galaxy noticed the change before it understood it. Human fleets still moved with perfect coordination. Their ships still appeared where no ship should be able to exist. Council remnants were still collapsing, surrendering, or vanishing into exile. But something fundamental had shifted. The restraint was gone, not replaced by rage, replaced by certainty. Human operations no longer paused to evaluate political consequences. They no longer waited for neutral worlds to react. Targets were selected, approached, and resolved with quiet finality. Where once systems were disabled, now they have ended. Not erased, not punished. Ended. A Council stronghold near the galactic rim lost its star when human engineers altered its fusion balance just enough to force a stellar shutdown. The world froze over months, its military infrastructure useless, its population already evacuated by human mandate. Another facility, one rumored to house fragments of the forbidden weapons research, was surrounded and sealed inside a permanent spatial lock. Time flowed normally outside. Inside, it did not. Whatever was there would never reach the future. The message spread faster than any broadcast. Humanity was no longer negotiating with history. Humanity was correcting it. Neutral species reacted in different ways. Some worlds openly aligned with human patrols, offering resources, intelligence, and access to ancient archives. Others retreated inward, sealing borders and hoping invisibility would protect them. A few panicked. Old empires that had survived every galactic upheaval suddenly realized they did not understand the new rules. They had grown comfortable in a universe where power was slow, bureaucratic, predictable. Humanity was none of those things. They were fast. They were adaptive. And now, they were absolute. In a deep space observatory maintained by a species older than most stars in their region, a group of ancient watchers convened. They had remained silent through the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They had not spoken during the Council's reign. They spoke now. The humans have crossed into inevitability, one said. They have not claimed dominance, another replied. They have claimed responsibility. That is more dangerous. The observers adjusted their instruments, peering not at human ships, but at the fabric of space around them. Human technology was changing something fundamental, not tearing reality apart, stabilizing it. Where Council space had been layered with hidden distortions, secret weapons, and unstable constructs, human intervention left regions quieter, safer, as if the galaxy itself was exhaling. On Earth, the cost of this phase became undeniable. Ships were lost more frequently now. Crews operated closer to unknown physics, against remnants willing to risk everything. Rescue was not always possible. Funerals were held daily. But still, no protests rose. Humanity understood something the Council never had. Peace paid for with lies never lasts. In the Human Command Nexus, Admiral Rourke listened as reports came in. Archive sweep complete in Sector 9. No remaining traces of forbidden research. Good, he said. Fleet Gamma reports resistance eliminated at the Heliox Vault. Civilian impact? None. Rourke nodded. Proceed. An aide hesitated. Sir, we're receiving signals from beyond mapped space. Not Council. Not known civilizations. That got his attention. Explain. They're watching, the aide said. Long-range probes. Passive observation. No aggression. Rourke was quiet for a moment. They noticed the weapon, he said. Yes, sir. And we stopped it. Yes. Rourke folded his hands behind his back. Let them watch, he said. We're not hiding anymore. That truth rippled outward. Humanity no longer masked its highest technologies. They did not broadcast them, but they did not conceal them either. The galaxy could see now. Ships that bend inertia without tearing space. Networks that anticipated conflict before it formed. Weapons that rewrote outcomes rather than causing destruction. Humanity has not become stronger overnight. They had simply stopped pretending. Council remnants made one last attempt at relevance. A coalition of former leaders, admirals, and strategists gathered in a fortified mobile citadel, a city-sized construct designed to survive supernovae. They declared themselves the Continuity Authority, claiming they represented galactic stability. They sent a message to every major world. Humanity has overreached, it declared. They have taken the role of judge without consent. If they are not stopped now, they will rule forever. For a moment, the galaxy hesitated. Then responses arrived. Not words. Coordinates. One by one, worlds sent locations of hidden council caches, black sites, and secret fleets. Many they had never admitted existed. The message was clear. We choose not them. The Continuity Authority launched everything they had left. A final armada surged toward human-controlled space, weapons primed for mutual annihilation. They believed that if they could force humanity into total war, the galaxy would turn against them. Human fleets did not retreat. They did not advance. They waited. When the armada crossed a specific threshold of space, something happened. Not an attack. A revelation. Every ship in the armada suddenly received the same data package. Internal logs. Command orders. Proof that the Continuity Authority had planned to use the forbidden weapon again, this time on multiple neutral worlds. The armada fractured instantly. Some ships turned on their commanders. Others shut down entirely. A few tried to flee. Human ships intervened, not to destroy, but to separate, contain, and disarm. The Continuity Authority collapsed without a single human shot fired. That was when the galaxy truly stood still. Not because of fear, because of understanding. Humanity was not enforcing peace through domination. They were removing the tools that made tyranny possible. The ancient observers spoke again. This species does not seek the throne, one said. They seek the lock. A lock. In the future, on Earth, Rourke finally allowed himself to rest. He stood on a balcony overlooking a city slowly returning to light. Children played beneath the stars. Ships moved quietly overhead, not in defense, but routine. An aide joined him. Sir, she said, the last confirmed fragment of the weapon's research has been neutralized. Rourke closed his eyes. How many systems lost? He asked. Only one, she replied. The colony. Rourke nodded slowly. One is too many, he said. Yes, sir. The aide hesitated. The galaxy is asking what comes next. Rourke looked up at the stars. We step back, he said, and we watch. Just watch. We intervene only when someone tries to rebuild what should never exist. The aide considered that. They're calling it the human line, she said. The point no one is allowed to cross. Rourke almost smiled. Good, he said. Lines are easier to respect than empires. Far beyond known space, something ancient adjusted its course. Humanity had passed a test it did not know it was taking. Not of strength, of restraint after loss. And the universe, old and patient, was beginning to take them very seriously. Because the galaxy had seen conquerors before, it had never seen guardians. And it did not yet know what that would mean. The galaxy expected a final war. That was how every great conflict ended. Someone always reached too far. Someone always tried one last strike. History, as the Council had taught it, demanded a violent conclusion. Humanity refused that script. After the fall of the Continuity Authority, the stars grew quiet in a way no one trusted. No fleets maneuvered. No borders shifted. No declarations echoed across the network. Human ships remained where they were, not advancing, not withdrawing, watching. For many worlds, that silence was unbearable. Delegations formed almost immediately. Entire species that had never spoken directly to Earth now sent envoys, historians, philosophers, and generals, all asking the same question in different ways. Who decides now? Humanity did not answer them. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Across thousands of systems, a signal activated, built into communication relays, navigation networks, and emergency channels that had existed for decades. No one had noticed them before. They had been installed quietly, piece by piece, during years of cooperation with the Council. The signal did not come from Earth. It came from everywhere. A shared network lit up, linking worlds directly to one another without any central authority. No Council oversight. No human command interface. Just access. Information flowed freely for the first time in galactic history. Trade agreements, defense pacts, historical records, unedited. Even disputed events were shown from multiple perspectives. Contradictions included. Confusion followed. Then arguments. Then something else. Choice. Worlds began negotiating directly. Old grudges surfaced, were argued over, sometimes settled, sometimes not. But they were no longer filtered through a ruling body that profited from imbalance. The galaxy began doing what it had not done in millennia, governing itself. That terrified the last remnants of the old order. Deep in a fortified relic drifting between dead stars, the final Council survivors gathered. There were few of them now, figures once powerful beyond measure, reduced to whispers and fear. This is chaos, one hissed. They're letting the galaxy tear itself apart. No, another replied quietly. They're letting it speak. That will destroy everything we built. A third laughed bitterly. That may have been the problem. They knew there was only one move left. Not a weapon, a narrative. They sent out a final broadcast, carefully crafted, emotional, desperate. It warned of human manipulation, of a hidden empire forming behind the scenes, of a future where humanity would step in only when it suited them. They begged the galaxy to rise up. Very few listened, because the broadcast was followed, unintentionally, by something else. A human response. Not from Earth. From a ship. It showed Admiral Rourke, standing alone in an unadorned chamber. No flags. No symbols. No guards. We've heard your concerns, he said. He did not deny them. You're right to be afraid, he continued. Power always tempts abuse. Even ours. That admission shook more worlds than any threat could have. We are not asking you to trust us, Rourke said. We are asking you to watch us. The image changed. Coordinates appeared, thousands of them. These are every human military installation, fleet position, and strategic asset currently active, he said. All of them. Nothing withheld. Gasps echoed across the galaxy. You will notice something else, Rourke went on. None of them are pointed at your worlds. He looked directly into the camera. If we ever cross the line we've drawn, you'll see it coming. And you will have the right to resist. The transmission ended. The final Council survivors understood what that meant. Humanity has placed itself under scrutiny. Voluntarily. The relic fortress did not survive the next week. Not because humans attacked it. Because its own automated systems shut down, built long ago with human-designed failsafes that activated only under one condition. Illegitimate authority detected. The survivors were taken into custody by neutral coalitions. Not imprisoned. Removed. Their names would not become legends. Their era would simply end. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy adjusted. Not peacefully. Not perfectly. But honestly. Conflicts flared, and were resolved without hidden manipulation. Some worlds failed. Others thrived. Alliances formed and broke. Humanity intervened exactly twice. Once, when a faction attempted to recreate the forbidden weapon. Once, when an entire species was targeted for extermination. Both times, intervention was swift, precise, unarguable. Afterward, humanity withdrew again. On Earth, Admiral Rourke prepared to step down. He stood before the human assembly, not a ruling body, but a gathering of representatives from across human space. Civilians, scientists, soldiers, artists. We were pushed into this role, he said, and we've done what we had to do. He paused. But no one should stand watch forever. A murmur rippled through the hall. Our greatest strength was never our fleets, Rourke continued. It was our memory. We remember what happens when power goes unchecked. He looked around the room. That doesn't make us special. It makes us responsible. He resigned that day. No successor was named. Human command structures decentralized, folding into civilian oversight. Military production slowed. The shipyards went quiet. Not because humanity was weakening, because they no longer needed to prove anything. The galaxy took notice. A phrase began circulating among scholars and diplomats. Judgment without chains. Humanity did not rule. They did not command. They simply ensured that some doors stayed closed. Far beyond the mapped stars, the ancient watchers reached a consensus. This cycle will be different, one said. Why? Another asked. Because they ended their war without crowning themselves victors. The watchers turned their gaze away, not in dismissal, but respect. Humanity had passed the final test. Not of power, but of letting go. And yet, somewhere in the galaxy, in the quiet spaces between rebuilt worlds, whispers began. Not of rebellion, of hope. Because the stars had learned something new. Empires fall. Weapons fade. Fear returns. But lines, when remembered, can hold. And humanity had drawn one that even the universe seemed willing to respect. Only one chapter remained. Not of war, but of what comes after survival. And whether the galaxy was truly ready for it. History does not end. It settles. That was the lesson the galaxy learned in the years after humanity stepped back. There was no single moment of peace. No universal celebration. No ceremony to mark a new age. Instead, there was adjustment. Slow, uneven, sometimes painful. Worlds learned how to speak without permission. Some failed. Without the Council's rigid control, old tensions resurfaced. Border disputes reignited. Trade routes shifted. A few systems collapsed under the weight of choices they had never been allowed to make before. Others flourished. Cultures once suppressed rediscovered themselves. Technologies long buried by Council regulation emerged. Entire species rewrote their own histories. Not to erase the past, but to finally understand it. And through it all, humanity remained present, but distant. Human ships patrolled only the deepest voids, regions where ancient threats stirred and no one else could reach in time. Their fleets were smaller now, leaner, quieter. No banners, no announcements, just watchful silhouettes against the stars. Children across the galaxy began to hear stories. Not propaganda. Stories. On distant worlds, elders spoke of a time when the galaxy nearly destroyed itself through fear and control. When a young species, once mocked, once used, chose to stand in the way. They did not tell tales of conquest. They told stories of restraint, of a species that could have ruled, but didn't. On Earth, life went on. Cities rebuilt parts that had gone dark. Memorials remained, not hidden, not glorified. Schools taught the truth openly. Humanity had not been perfect. They had made mistakes. They were angry, but they had remembered why they fought. The Chamber of Absence, the memorial for the erased colony, became a place of pilgrimage. Humans and non-humans alike visited it, not to mourn alone, but to understand what had been lost. No one spoke loudly there. You couldn't. It felt wrong. Years passed. Then decades. The galaxy slowly stabilized, not under a single rule, but under shared memory. Every major power signed the Human Line Accords. They were simple documents, compared to the old Council's endless laws. 3 principles. No weapon that erased history. No war of extermination. No authority beyond consent. The Accords were not enforced by fleets. They were enforced by consequence. Everyone knew what happened to those who crossed the line. Not because humanity threatened it. Because humanity had proven it. There were challenges. There were always challenges. Once, a rising empire attempted to seize control of a resource-rich cluster by force. Human observers issued a single warning. The empire ignored it. Humanity intervened, not with annihilation, but with exposure. Records of corruption, internal betrayals, and manipulated famines were released. The empire collapsed from within. Another time, an ancient machine intelligence, older than most stars, attempted to restart a cycle of galactic cleansing it had performed before organic life spread too far. Human ships arrived at the edge of its domain. They did not attack. They spoke. For days. For weeks. No one knows what was said. The intelligence shut itself down voluntarily. Some mysteries stayed mysteries. And humanity was fine with that. Admiral Rourke lived out his remaining years quietly. He refused statues. Refused titles. When historians sought interviews, he redirected them to others, engineers, medics, soldiers who never made headlines. Heroes, he said once, are what you call people when you don't want to remember how many it took. When he died, the galaxy noticed, not because of ceremonies, but because ships across thousands of systems powered down their engines for 1 minute. Silence, shared. No official decree had been issued. It just happened. In the deep archives of the ancient Watchers, a final record was written. Species, human status, stabilizing influence threat level, irrelevant trust level, unprecedented. They closed the file. They did not expect to reopen it. Because the galaxy had changed. The idea of supremacy had lost its appeal. Power was no longer something to seize, but something to question. And humanity, once underestimated, once betrayed, had become something rare. A reference point. Generations later, a young scholar on a distant world asked their mentor a simple question. Why didn't the humans take over, when they clearly could? The mentor thought for a long moment. Because, they said slowly, they knew something we didn't. What? That winning and ruling are not the same thing. The stars continued to turn. New species emerged. Others faded. Trade routes shifted again. Conflicts rose and fell. But some things did not return. No council ever reformed. No galactic throne was built. And no one ever tried to erase a people from history again. Because everyone remembered what happened the last time someone crossed that line. Humanity never announced itself as the galaxy's protector. They never needed to. The galaxy learned to protect itself because it knew someone was watching, not to control, but to remember. And memory, it turned out, was the most powerful force of all. Long after the war faded into legend, a simple phrase remained, translated into thousands of languages and taught on countless worlds. Do not mistake patience for weakness. Do not mistake mercy for fear. And never forget what humans chose not to become. The galaxy survived many ages after that, but it never again forgot humanity, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the species that arrived when betrayed and left nothing standing that deserved to fall.